Okay, so we've seen how to use GeoGebra for using the things. And we know how to calculate this by hand, but we're going to actually practice using our TI. So we want it turned on. And then what we've already been given the statistics. So it's already been broken down into the statistics for us. So what we want to do is we want to go to that stats button, which is right here. And we're going to hit stats. And we want to actually go through. So test the claim that the proportion of people who own cats is larger than 30%. We want a 5% significant level. So let's pick what are null and alternative hypotheses. So it's a proportion because we're looking at people who own cats. So do you own a cat? Yes or no? And we want to know, is it larger than 30%? So we can get rid of all of these mu's in here. None of them are going to work. And we need it to be larger than, well, this P is less than 30%, and this P is not equal to 30%, but this P here in our alternative, it is in fact greater than 30%. And when we look at it, the arrow is pointing in the right-hand direction. So this is a right-tailed test. Okay, and now that we're convinced that that is true, let's go ahead and go on. So so we know that we want to do a single proportion test, right? We're running a single proportion test. So here we are in our, again, we press the stats button. So here you are, edit. With calculate, this is how you could edit is where you could throw in data for a list, and then calculate is where you could go ahead and get things like your mean, median, and mode, and your standard deviation if you needed to. And now here we are, clicked on it like it was a touch screen, go over to tests, and now you can see test, 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 test. You had the same thing down here for if you were running intervals. So here we're going up, we're gonna run a test. Which test are we running? Well, it's not a z-test and a t-test. These are for means. 2SAMP Z and T, these are for difference of two population means. This t-test can also be used for a difference of paired means. And then here we see 1 and 2 prop z-test. That prop is for proportion. So here we go to a 1 proportion z-test, and we're going to hit enter. And now it says P naught, so it wants you to give the null value. So this is the null value. That's what we're choosing right here. So 0.3, that's our null value. We're testing against 30%. And hit enter. X, this is the number of successes. Now notice it says based on a sample of 300, 33% own cats. If you put in 0.33, it doesn't understand that. You need the actual count of successes. Now, one of the cool things about this is you can go 0.33 times 300, hit enter, and it will give you, it's like, oh, so 99 successes. So that is one of the nice things about that, is that you don't have to go calculate that somewhere else. And then there's our sample size of 300, and hit enter. And now we have to decide what kind of test are you doing. Now notice, I think something that throws people off is it's putting the 0.3 in there for you. So it's give that P0, that's the null value. So it's saying the proportion is not equal. That would be matching this one right here. The proportion is less than the null value. That would be matching this one right here. We want the right-tailed test. So we're going to hit enter. And now a cool thing, you can actually draw it. Now you do have to have your stat plot on, I think. Let's actually see. No, you don't. So here you go. I love this because isn't this cool? This shows you the situation that's going on. So whenever I say draw the situation, this is what I'm talking about. Your TI-84 actually draws it for you. So we're on the standard normal curve. There's our z-score of 1.1339. And here is its associated p-value. So if we built the sampling distribution based on this value of 0.3 and this sample size of 300, and then we put down this sample of 0.33, it would land in the same place as this right here. That's very, very cool. Now, one cool thing about drawing is that, boom, I have the values that I needed. So I can actually read them off right there, 1.1339. And I think I'm going to get knocked for not rounding to 2 decimals, and 0.1284. Let's actually see if it gets mad at me. Oh, it didn't get mad at me. Cool. It let me round out farther than 2 decimal points. So there we go. But let's go ahead. If I didn't want to draw, let's actually go back to our stats button, go back to our tests, come back down to number 5, the one prop Z test, hit enter. Notice all of my info still in there. Beautiful. Go to calculate, hit enter, and you can see it set up. It said you want your proportion to be greater than 0.3. Your Z score, it takes that test statistic way farther out. There's your P value. Don't think that it's the P hat, right? Don't get tricked. There's your P value, 0.128. So if you need a longer P value, that goes out nice and long for you. There's your P hat. So that's this 33. That's the sample statistic. And then my N is 300. So you can come back here and make sure your data got entered in, that your statistics got entered in correctly. All right, well, that is a big old p-value. It's definitely bigger than the 0.5. So we're going to fail to reject our null hypothesis. And when you're working with these, so I know this is a single proportion. I'm not going to do the other ones, but I want you to see. So if we're doing a t-test, it's going to ask you for your null value. It's going to say, oh, do you want to do it from a list? I have it set to data. I don't want to do it from a list. I want to do it with summarized statistics. Hit enter. So you could do it from data on a list, or you can do it from summarized statistics. That's one of the nice things. Go back and watch my videos for how to do it how to enter data into the lists. Here is your null value that you need to put in. What is the mean that you're looking at? What's the standard deviation of the sample? It's a t-test, so remember, it's a standard deviation of the sample. It's not asking you to calculate degrees of freedom because it will put that in there for you. You're going to go through, what kind of test are you doing? Hit your calculate. This is not going to turn out well because I have zeros everywhere. So it's like, what are you doing? Because I have zeros everywhere, but just as a fun thing. So it spits out basically the exact same information. If you ever do something weird, you just hit the stats button, you click back over to tests, and you scroll down to the test that you're looking for. For the 2 sample t-test, you're going to put in the data from sample 1, the data from sample 1, the data from sample 2. Then you're going to choose. Notice it doesn't ask for a null value here. Why? Because the null value is always 0 when you're doing a difference. Pooled, for us, it's going to be no. That's the big thing. Don't pool your data.